Arthur Ransome was born in Yorkshire, in Leeds, and we don't normally hold that against him here in Cumbria, but Ransome knew this area because the family came here on holiday. They came to Nibthwaite at the southern end of Coniston. His father was a very, very keen fisherman. The family loved their holidays. They went to Peel Island, known as Wildcat Island in the books. Sadly, Ransome's father died when Ransome was 13, and so those visits finished. But he still kept that interest in Coniston. When he was a young man, he came back many, many times, and quite fortuitously, he met the Collingwood family from Lane Head. They taught him how to sail. He in return proposed marriage to two of the daughters, unsuccessfully I might add, but the friendship remained and he really loved Coniston. One of those Collingwood daughters married an Irish-Armenian doctor called Ernest Altunian. They had 5 children, and it's those 5 children on whom the Swallows are based, the Altunian family. Ransome helped to teach them how to sail. Arthur Ransome would have been sitting at a desk very similar to this one. In fact, there are quite a lot of his artefacts here at the Museum of Lakeland Life. And he was working when the 2 Altunian children came with an awful lot of noise, shouting, "Uncle Arthur, happy birthday! We've bought you a pair of slippers." And they'd got a pair of Turkish slippers which they presented, and Ransome thought, isn't it a shame they're going back to Syria? And he decided to write a book about their boat, Swallow, and their adventures in that boat. And Swallows and Amazons was born.
Here at the Ruskin Museum, we've got a number of items in the collection which do relate closely to Arthur Ransome. We have a model of Peel Island, Coniston's famous island, which created 2 sort of landing points at the south end of the island.
Now, Peel Island on Coniston is an absolute magnet for Arthur Ransome fans. Of course, it's Wildcat Island from the books. Of course, Wildcat Island is almost exactly as described in the book Swallows and Amazons. It has the landing place, the secret harbour, the campsite, the lighthouse tree, but you quite often see people in the harbour imagining what it would be like to be the Swallows coming into that secret harbour for the very first time.
We also have the dinghy, which is one of the 2 that Arthur Ransome and Ernest Altunian bought from Walney in 1928. They rechristened the boats. One was named Swallow, the other was named Mavis, and the 2 boats were sailed by the children. The deal was that at the end of this leave, one boat would be taken by Arthur Ransome, the other boat would remain with the Altunian family. Ransome chose Swallow, and the Altunians kept Mavis.
Another magnet for the Arthur Ransome Society is, of course, Holly Howe, the farmhouse from the books. It appears in real life as Bank Ground Farm, but we get several Ransome fans staying there, and even more so, you get Ransome fans tacking up the field, zigzagging to and fro, just like Roger did on the very, very first page of Swallows and Amazons. Immediately opposite Bank Ground Farm is the Old Man of Coniston at 2,635 feet high. It's one of the largest in the Coniston area. However, it appears in the book Swallowdale as Kanchenjunga. The reason Ransome called it Kanchenjunga is probably because in 1931, when he wrote Swallowdale, there was actually an expedition to the real Kanchenjunga. Ransome's popularity in the English-speaking world is taken for granted, really, but we do get tourists who have approached the Ransome books by way of their own language, particularly Japanese, Hungarian and Czech, all of which are still in print. Ransome was already 46 when he wrote Swallows and Amazons, and his previous life had been really of journalism rather than writing books. He ended up, for various reasons, in Russia, smack in the middle of a Bolshevik revolution, actually, and found himself rather useful as a war correspondent.
He was one of the very few journalists in Russia during the revolution who could actually speak Russian. So he wasn't getting the story in translation, which could have been sort of slanted in various ways, he actually heard what they were saying.
He met Lenin, with whom he played chess, allowing Lenin to win quite a few times, I think. He met Trotsky, and in meeting Trotsky, he had to go through Trotsky's secretary, Yevgenia Shalapina, and they fell in love. It was soon obvious that Ransome and Yevgenia were going to spend the rest of their lives together. He had to wait for a divorce to come through from his first wife, and once that had happened, they were able to come back to England in the late 1920s, settle in this area at Low Ludderburn near Winster, and then he started to write the books that we all know and love so well. There certainly wasn't a huge run on them, and it wasn't until his third book, Peter Duck, that he really became popular as a children's author. And from then on, children were clamouring every year for a new book, and he tried to time it so that they were out for Christmas. And he managed 12 books altogether, culminating with the last one, Great Northern, in 1947. Arthur Ransome died after a long illness, well into his 80s, on the 3rd of June 1967. He's buried in Rusland Churchyard. Now that's a beautiful little place. It's in between Coniston and Windermere. Somewhat tricky to find, but when you do find it, it's just a haven of peace and quiet. The Arthur Ransome Society visit the grave, and on the anniversary, June the 3rd, they have a few moments of quiet around the grave just to reflect.
The Arthur Ransome Society, which has about 2,000 members worldwide and is affiliated with the Arthur Ransome Club of Japan, which has about another 1,000 members. It's amazing how many people will tell you that they A, learned to sail from reading Swallows and Amazons and the associated books, and B, learned to fish from reading Arthur Ransome.
Those books are very, very popular nowadays, and very, very glad to see children still reading them. There's an interest in this area, particularly because many of the books are set in the Coniston-Windermere area.